Here on Charlotte. Man, the football game last night was great to have. I know folks are like, football hasn't started yet, but Hall of Fame game really, it was a good game in my opinion. I mean, fun to watch.
Trey Lance legacy game. We watched it here on WCNC.
You kept saying that, but you've got some crazy takes. Let's leave your sports takes for a couple minutes here. Let's bring on the professional of sports takes here, Nick Carboni, our sports director here at WCNC. Nick, great to have you again, man. I know you've been all week at practice. Let's talk about today. Where do you want to start? I saw T-Mac talking about his practice this last week. How did he look today?
It was actually a little bit of an underwhelming day for he and Bryce Young. They kind of failed to connect a few times, but Coach Dave Canales told us after practice that's something they can now go look at this afternoon and say, okay, I thought you were going to be here. I delivered the ball here. So that is part of building the chemistry. But T-Mac, after having a quiet first few weeks, and we were talking a lot about Hunter Renfrow, who, by the way, has been out of practice 2 straight days, T-Mac made a loud statement this week on Wednesday with his practice. He dropped a pass, which he rarely did in college, and then he responded by rattling off 4 or 5 catches in a row, including like a nearly impossible one-handed catch. And that is what he brings to this team, and that is what he brings to Bryce Young. So he's coming along. He is admittedly adjusting to the physicality of the NFL. There's a lot more man press coverage at the line of scrimmage, so he's experiencing that more, and he's experiencing it coming from Pro Bowl corner J.C. Horn every day at practice. So he's like, look, I'm hoping I get some of the calls on those physical reps, but I also have to overcome it, and I overcome it with confidence and listening to my coaches and fellow wide receivers. So he is steadily progressing. Man, when he makes one of those one-handed catches, it is spectacular. He made a lot of them in college. You see him kind of working on it in individual drills. So I asked him about it today. I'm like, I know it's flashy. I know fans love it, but it's also kind of a part of your game. And he kind of downplayed it and said, he said, y'all aren't going to believe me, but I catch it with one hand only when I have to. But the point is that he can, and he can at 6'4", plus the arm length and the ability to catch it one-handed. Really opens it up for Bryce Young to get it anywhere near him. And you love this mentality, Colin, from a rookie. He told me, if I get my hands on the ball, it's my obligation to the quarterback to catch it. Love that attitude and approach.
Yeah, Bryce needs a safe breadbasket to throw that ball into, and it sounds like he's found it.
Yeah, third downs, red zone, that's where he's going to come up big.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome to watch. You have some big news about Bryce Young for the first couple preseason games. Give us that.
Yeah, last year, Dave Canales' first big decision as head coach in the NFL was whether or not to play his starting quarterback in the preseason. He chose not to do so until the 3rd preseason game, which is really more for those back end of the roster guys. Bryce Young plays. He looked sharp. He had 8 passing attempts. It's going to be a lot different this year. Dave Canales today confirming that Bryce Young and the starters will play in each of the 2 first preseason games. Okay. You also look at the calendar, and when those preseason games are, they each correspond and follow joint practices. So next week, they play their preseason game against the Browns on Friday. Right. Wednesday, the Browns are here for a joint practice. Same thing at Houston the following week, a joint practice against the Texans, a preseason game that Bryce Young will play in at the Texans. So he's going to get a lot of work, and he's going to get a lot of reps with his new pieces like T-Mac and Rico Dowdle out of the backfield joining Chuba Hubbard. So obviously a different approach. Dave Canales wouldn't go as far as to say that it was a lesson learned from his approach last year where he didn't play Bryce until the 3rd game, and then Bryce has a terrible first 2 games of the season in the new offense and is benched by week 3. He just said, listen, that's the way Pete Carroll did it when I was in Seattle. So that's his approach now. It wasn't last year, so we'll see any results that it bears. But that was a conversation that I was kind of waiting to see who blinked. Dave Canales or the media? When are we going to ask him about it? When is he going to say it? It certainly would have happened by Monday or after FanFest tomorrow night. But now it is confirmed Bryce Young and the starters will play at least a couple series in those first 2 preseason contests.
All right, let's talk about FanFest, and let's talk about what's ahead, because I've already been asked about Shedeur Sanders.
He'll be here.
Yeah, and there's always – this is a very interesting time. There's a lot of scuffles that happen. People love that aspect of it, but there's a lot of nuts and bolts that go into it because they're trying to get the X's and O's perfectly right before they start the season. So give us, set the stage for us for next week.
You can take a lot from the joint practices.
Okay.
You can take a lot from the guys on the line of scrimmage, offensive line, defensive line. I remember before one season, the Panthers' offensive line going up against the Bills' defensive line in a training camp joint practice. And that was kind of our first sign that year that this offensive line has a lot of work to do. That Bills' defensive line was pretty good as well. So you can glean a lot. I say that knowing full well that I watched Bryce Young practice against the Jets last year in joint practice, and everybody, including myself, said, this kid's got it.
Yeah.
And then he had a horrible first 2 games. But there's going to be a lot of work they get in. They can control the scenarios and the situations in which they're putting their players in while also not being allowed to tackle to the ground mostly, but definitely not allowed to hit the quarterback still. It's still controlled in that way, but then you can in the preseason game. The intensity ramps up. There is something to be said for, hey, I finally get a chance to hit somebody besides my own teammate. As chippy as we see things sometimes get between your own teammates in practice, no doubt, you see another team walking up on your field, that competitive juice is going to start flowing. It's probably going to be hot and humid, and you're going to be hitting hard. So I think we'll definitely see some scuffles. We did last year with the Panthers, and now this is even more of a Panthers team in defense that is tired of being pushed around, doesn't want to back down. Be interested to see in how the Panthers defense looks against that Browns quarterback room, which is, I guess, interesting to say the least. Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, Shadur Sanders. I'm not sure how they're splitting all those reps, but we'll get a look at that. And then defensively, the Browns picked Mason Graham, defensive tackle, top 5 pick. They have Myles Garrett. How does that look against the Panthers offensive line?
Well, talk about some of the keys for next week because you brought it up yourself. The defense. J.C. Horn looked real good locking down XL earlier this week, and I know that he's working on his routes. He looks fast on his breaks as well. How's the defense molding, in your opinion?
Yeah, the defensive backfield, I'll start there. They have the established outside cornerbacks in J.C. Horn, who made the Pro Bowl, and Mike Jackson, who they picked up around this time last year, turned himself into a very solid starter, and they kept him around. Then you've got the safety room, which basically is all new, at least from a starting standpoint. They brought in free agent Trayvon Merrick, and now they're watching these younger guys like Damani Richardson kind of step up and prevent them from bringing anybody else in off the street so far. You've seen a lot of good communication in those groups, a lot of good picking up of the system and knowing what to do. Shaw Smith-Wade is working his way into the starting nickelback position. That's kind of a carryover from last year. And a guy I talked to today, Corey Thornton, young, rookie, undrafted guy from Louisville, he keeps showing up on the field in big situations and making plays. I have a one-on-one with him tonight at 5:30 on WCNC Charlotte. So that's the defensive backfield. Linebackers, it's thin after the starting group of Christian Roseboom and Trevin Wallace because Josie Jewell was released with his continued concussion symptoms. And defensive line, that's what I'm really going to be keyed in on Wednesday, Colin, and Friday night next week in the game, is because that group has been kind of slow to be on the field together. Derek Brown has had to take some days off, planned, I think, because they're big priority with him coming off the knee injury last year is to get him ready for week 1. Bobby Brown, who they brought in from the Rams, wasn't there for the first couple of practices. DJ Wanham took a day or two to start getting in, and they've got the addition of Turk Wharton from the Kansas City Chiefs as well. So I'm really interested to see what that group looks like Wednesday and Friday, and plus the 2 rookies they picked up, Nick Scorton and Princely Uman-Mielen.
Let's not forget those guys. Yeah, they could have really an explosive defensive line that really could help them. I mean, they're going to need it.
I was surprised when Dave Canales told us in minicamp that was the best group out there.
That's
it
wild.
Should be improved, and it should help the defense improve from, historically bad, at least.
Well, especially with all the losses they've had over the last couple of years, some big holes. Frankie Louvu looks good up in with the Commanders.
I know. That's a guy some guys get walk in free agency and fans are disappointed. That was guy. One that the front office was too.
He looks great. He's rejuvenated. Wish we had him back. Anyway, looking forward to next week, Nick. Any other keys? I know we don't have long here to toss things to the 4 o'clock, but any other things that I'm missing?
Well, I mean, Hunter Renfrow was such a big story through the first week and a half of training camp. Certainly a guy that I think, if training camp had ended this past Tuesday would have made the 53-man roster, but of course it goes for a few more weeks, and he hasn't been out there the last couple of days with kind of a hamstring tweak. I'll be interested to see if he's back on the field for a padded practice tomorrow night at FanFest, or at least back on the field for those joint practices with the Cleveland Browns. Because listen, he's got a lot of ability, but your best ability is availability, of course, and he's got to be back out of practice if he wants to continue to try and make the team. So he jumps out as somebody that was a great story, could certainly help the team. I will also say this, ESPN reporting that Terry McLaurin in Washington wants out, and they published an article that said, and it was speculation, Panthers could be in a position to make a play for McLaurin. They may have to give up Adam Thielen, who's on a contract here. So that's kind of the underlying buzz around this receiver room right now. And that could be something to watch over the weekend for sure.
Oh, I can't imagine. Can you imagine Terry McLaurin?
That would be a big move. That
Scary
would be a big move, but there's only a few teams that could make it. Panthers probably one of them.
All right, well, we'll see where it goes. Nick Carboni with all the latest. And don't forget, we've got FanFest Saturday, 6:30 p.m., $5 tickets, but all ticket proceeds benefit Panthers charities. Nick, can't wait for your reports tonight at 5 and 6 and 11. See you tonight.
You got it.